I remember back in the days when we were talking about film or video, which is going to be the future, and somebody had made a Super 8 movie at a film festival, and it got a lot of positive comment. And it went to show me that the quality of the image is important, but not as important as the story. You had a hell of a story. You talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely, and that was something I think we were worried about at first because, you know, the image quality isn't always there. You've got the imperfections of Zoom freezing up, and you've got the people laying on their bed interviewing or driving in their car interviewing. But when we started to put it together, Thomas and I really felt like the story was there, and a story you don't hear much of. You know, if you heard on the news that a #1 seed beat a 16 seed in the tournament, you're probably going to change the channel and not worry about it. But to, you know, people like me and Thomas that went to the school and obviously to the team that's playing, like, that means the world to them that they got to play, and even though they ultimately lost. So it was an important story, I think, for us to tell.
Yeah, we've both grown up in the Gardner-Webb community. He graduated there a couple years ago. I'm currently a student there, rising senior, but we both live in Boiling Springs, North Carolina, and we just remember that energy throughout that month period, basically.
The entire town.
Yeah, for the entire town was like nothing that we've ever felt before. And, you know, we kind of wanted to preserve that memory, not only for our community, but also maybe give others from the outside kind of a glimpse into what it was like at that point, which was just such a big part of our town's history, really.
To me, the pacing of the movie was part of key to the reason I think it was a great success. And the beginning, you were laying the groundwork, you were introducing the people, you were giving the history, and then they started playing games, and they were doing okay, and then getting setbacks, and doing okay, and getting setbacks, and then doing okay. And then all of a sudden, they're in the run. And then the film just moves.
Yeah.
I mean, were you conscious of the pacing like that?
We were having to be very conscious, and I think probably the last 40 minutes of the movie didn't change from the first cut. It was the first, 40 minutes that really moved a lot. I think our first cut was probably 15 or 20 minutes longer, and we watched it and we were like, we can't show every single game of the season. So the pacing was really important to us to capture, but like you said, once it picks up when they're winning and getting through the tournament games, that kind of stayed locked from the beginning.
So I'm interested to hear a little bit more about how you handle building an emotional arc with a loss at the end. Like, how do you make that interesting when you're building up to a lose, like a big L?
No, absolutely. I'm a sucker for tragic stories. Like hero dies at the end of the movie. I'm all about it. So I think that wasn't necessarily a barrier for us. But I do think the final scene was important to us because you can't just end it and be like, end of the game, we lost. So kind of that retrospective ending is how we kind of reconciled that, I think, to show how the team and the community felt, because it was bittersweet, but there wasn't just the devastation of a loss as much as it was, you know what, we came, we competed, and we never thought we'd be here.
Yeah, I think really the big part of the victory was just the journey that it took to get there, and being 16 seed, our first time in school history at that point even, we were very thrilled and satisfied to be where we were at that point, and just showing that as far as the final outcome, that wasn't quite as important as the journey itself. So, and I think Christian's music score as well. Director, editor, and composer, just incredible mastermind, and I think his music score played a big role in kind of honing into that emotion as well. So,
I think in the submission notes you said something about the fact that you kind of holed up and worked on this in the COVID time.
Oh yeah, my wife probably didn't see as much of me as she. You think you're locked in the same house, you're going to see a lot of each other, but instead I was in a separate room composing and editing the whole time.